Hello everyone. Hi. If you can hear me, please just tell me that the sound is good because today my setup is different. It's a very weird tripod situation going on here. So if you can hear me, just like maybe put a thumbs up or say that yes, you can hear me. That'll be good. Hi Shreya. Uh, okay, great. So you can hear me. That's good. That's good. It's just very sunny today. Like it's been raining all morning, but it's sunny right now. So I did not want to face the window because I would be glowing. So I just decided to change the setup a little bit. And before you all ask me, yes, those are some Taylor Swift paintings because I know that's going to be a question. That's always a question when I'm on the live. So yes, those are Taylor Swift paintings. And today is again something very technical, I would say, something about contracts. And I'm doing good, Niklas Suman. I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. So, yeah, so today's about contracts because I spoke about invoices yesterday, and actually, so many of you messaged me after that it was really helpful. That it, not yesterday, day before yesterday, and that it was really helpful, and that, it kind of clarified your doubts. And I understand that, things like a contract or an invoice are things that you can just basically find online, and it's very easy to um, find the details and information about what's supposed to be in a contract. I understand that. But sometimes it's just, I guess it's easier when I'm sitting and telling you that. And of course, the best part is that you can ask me questions back. So that's something different from a Google search that, after I tell you something, if you have any doubts, you can just ask me back. That's the only thing. So yeah, so today again, if you are new here, then let me tell you that um, the session is like about me talking for 20-25 minutes. I give you all the information. Today's outline is what is a contract, what do you include in a contract, how do you send a contract, and the last thing is a Q&A. So the Q&A is restricted to contracts. So if you have any questions about contracts, you can put them in the comment box or in the question tab, whatever you prefer. So yeah, so that's it. So let's begin. And I will also I want to read out a few contracts I've written while I explain this, so that I just hope that will help you kind of better understand what's supposed to be written. And like don't worry about noting it down. Like if you miss those sentences, you can always, like, this will be saved, so you can always rewind back, pause, and keep writing it, so that may help. So okay, so first things first, what is a contract? So a contract, very simply, is just an agreement between you and the client, and it outlines both of your responsibilities. So if I'm a freelancer, and if I'm sending a contract to my client, that contract is going to include all the details about our work. What details I will tell you in a few minutes. It's going to include all the details about our work. It's going to include any responsibilities, duties from my side, and if you like, you can also include the client's responsibilities and duties. So like, okay, as a writer, I am supposed to write XYZ, but as a client, you are supposed to give me the required information, things like that. So whatever it may be, those things, expectations from the client, can also be included in the contract. Okay, so basically that's a contract. It's just an agreement, and like it is a legal agreement normally, but I'm really when I send a contract to a client, and if the scope of work changes a little bit depending on the relationship and how the work has been, I'm okay sometimes tweaking the work even though it's not in the contract. But then that's totally up to you, how you decide to abide by the contract, and what importance you give to it. That's completely on you. But yes, a contract is a very good way to save yourself at the end of everything, because it makes sure that you have committed how much time or money, how much time or effort or work you're going to provide for this particular payment, for this particular period of time. And it really safeguards you from going overboard and working too much. So yeah, so that's basically what a contract is. So I want to tell you some things to include in the contract. So I'm just going to pull out a contract. Just give me 1 minute. I should have done this before, but I haven't. So I'm going to pull out a contract that I have written. And let me tell you, like when I first started writing a contract, my idea was also that I had done a Google search as to what should be included in a contract. And I actually found some pretty good content, and that's something I used in the starting. I used like I literally copy pasted it because the website said you could copy paste it. So I literally copy pasted it. I tweaked it as required later on. And with time, I've kept, changing it, working on it, and making it suitable to what I need to include in a contract. So this is important because some points that I tell you here may not be enough for you. Maybe you want to include something else. And if you think it's important, you should go for it. There's no like, the idea is that through a contract, clarify as much things as possible so that you are safe and the client is safe and you both have clear expectations. That's the goal. So I am going to find a contract which for some reason I cannot. If I do not find it in the next 30 seconds, we can just move on with it. Okay, found it. All right, so the first thing about a contract is an introduction. So, what I like, there's a heading, of course, and the heading I put is like a letter of agreement or contract between Shreya Pattar and company name, something like that, very helpful. And just below the heading, I like to put basically I like to put what the scope of work is. So just like a quick summary, so that if somebody is like just seeing what is the contract about, they can get it instantly. So I'm going to share like okay, so 1 second. I really should have planned for this earlier, but okay. So this is what this letter of agreement looks like for me. So I just put on top, I put letter of agreement, and then below that I write a quick summary of what the scope of work is. So it says letter of agreement on the top, and then below it says monthly content, newsletters, and social media marketing. So what that does is it gives a quick snapshot of what's in the complete contract. You can do it your way. And I would like to read out what I write, the introductory line. The first line that I write is, as discussed, I have set out below a description of the services that I, Shreya Pattar, bracket writer, will provide to you, bracket client, together with our agreed upon fees. So this is the introduction. Again, if you've missed it, you can go back and watch it later on. Don't worry about that. And then the next important thing is the contract is between company name with its office at company address and my name, Shreya Pattar, residing at address. So in the introduction, what do you cover? You cover that the contract is based on what we had discussed. That's the first thing. Second thing, you cover who is the contract between. If the contract is between the client and you, client's company name, client's company address. If you want, you can also include the email ID and contact number, things like that within the contract. And my, as a freelancer, my name and my address. So because I don't have an office, I just write residing at, and wherever I reside, I write that address. That works completely fine. The next thing that I include is a scope of work. So the scope of work is basically what work am I going to do. So like in this contract, it was about say social media content and newsletters. So I write scope of work, and then there are two main bullet points: social media content, newsletter. And under each bullet point, there's a description of exactly what is provided. How many newsletters, how many okay, how many newsletters are there, what word count, what is the expectation, what kind of language will be used, anything that you've discussed, put it all in there. Social media posts, what am I doing? Am I writing the content, the graphic designing, the video editing, the posting? What, like, how long is this posting for? How many posts will be included? What is the approximate number of platforms that I'm going to include? All those kind of things. Again, be as specific as possible to avoid any ambiguity, to avoid any concerns as to like there should be no question mark, there should be no uh, vagueness, no ambiguity. Nobody should later come in and ask you that, hey, wait, this was not mentioned, so can we do this also? So always try to, in the contract, always try to mention what is included and what is not. Especially for social media marketing, I always mention that, okay, I'm doing this, and if the posting is not from my side, I also mention posting is not included. So again, this clarifies things, what is included, what is not included, right? Both of them in your scope of work. So for articles, again, it could be word count, number of articles in a month, on what days you will provide the articles, if that makes it easier, things like that. Just again, make it as specific as possible. So that's the second thing, the scope of work. The third thing is the fees. Now in terms of the fees, you can give it in a breakdown. So like, again, I'm doing say two things, newsletters and social media marketing. So I can write that the fees, social media marketing this much, newsletters this much, and then the total. And in the fees, always mention the currency. In the fees, always write it in numerical form and then write it in words. So if it is say 1,000 rupees, you write rupees 1000, and you also write rupees 1000 only. This I had mentioned even for invoices, because if you make an error in the digits, then those words will save you. And by common sense, please don't end up making an error in the words, because if you make an error there, then it's very difficult to save yourself from that. So just be very, very careful about the cost. So yeah, so that's a way to write the fees. Just very simple. You can put a breakdown, or you can just put the total fees. And preferably, you can also put in the date. So like, you know, how long is that fees for? Is it per month, per week, per year, whatever it is? So preferably, let's make it per month. So you can just write that that fees INR 1000 per month, example. Okay, that's next thing. Another thing I include, that is not something I've seen in a contract, but I prefer to include, is the writer's availability. So I always include writer's availability, which is basically my work hours. So I write writer's availability Monday to Friday, 4 a.m. 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. BST. So that again, that clarifies my availability and when these people are supposed to contact me. I'm also available on the weekends for like any urgent queries, any like, crisis, I would say, which doesn't really happen, but sometimes if the requirement is urgent, I'm available in that sense. If you want, you can mention that, but I prefer only to write my availability. That's it. So that's something you can consider adding. So as I said, like, you have to kind of tweak the contract in a way that suits you best. Like, you really need to, figure that out yourself. After the fees and after your availability, the next thing is the process of working. So how are you going to work? So for example, for me, like I've spoken a lot that when it comes to articles, I always send an outline. So in my process of working, I prefer to write that all content will be provided on a Google Doc or sheet. An outline will be shared, and upon approval, the article will be written, and edits may be requested directly by commenting in the doc. So things like that, whatever your process of working is, keep it very brief. That doesn't have to be like, don't make it like 10-15 lines, don't elaborate every single thing, but it should be clear enough to understand that at what point the client needs to come in and help you out, or what is the client's involvement. That is the most important thing that you need to make very clear in the process of working. So here you can also mention like whether it will take you like say 3 or 5 days to write an article. Try to mention that so that the client is prepared for that as well, for the timelines. The next thing is the final deliverables. So what's the final thing that the client will get by working with you? For say newsletters, the final thing would be the newsletter content on a Google Doc. If it is social media management, the final thing will be graphic designs, videos, and those will be uploaded on the social media platforms. That's the final thing. So whatever is your final deliverable, mention that. What this does is it clarifies what the client has to expect from you every month and how they can keep a track. That's one thing. And the second thing is they know where the process stops. When I say that, the final deliverable is a newsletter content on a Google document, it means my process stops at writing the newsletter. It does not include, designing it, sending it, none of those things. So my process is finished. That's the final thing I'm going to provide for newsletter. So that's something again that helps you set your grounds as to, until what stage you're going to be involved. And once that is done, the client is prepared that okay, this task is complete from this person's side. So that's another helpful thing. The next thing is terms. So all your terms include everything. The terms are very important. Be very careful in, including um as many terms as you need. Of course, don't be overwhelming. Don't try to make a term out of every single thing. But some terms that, I mention include, I'll read them out. Some terms are that writer shall provide up to 2 additional edits per piece of content, so number of edits. Second is that the edits must be requested within 3 working days of receiving the content. So that is, the time limit of when the edits must be requested. So yeah, so those are my terms. You can have your own terms. You can have uh, anything you want, honestly. Number of edits, it could be something like your byline. Is your byline included? Is it ghostwriting? Um, and on within what time will the edits be provided? How much will the extra edits be charged? All of those kind of things can be included in the terms section. The next thing is the payment terms. I prefer to keep the working terms and payment terms separate because it just makes it easier and makes the contract also much more easy to understand and read and really grasp. So in the payment terms, what I mention is advance payment, like how much, if there's a percentage advance and 50% advance payment. If you are charging a small, like if you are not charging 100% advance, then you should always mention the dates of the next payment. So suppose today is 20th, right? So suppose you send a contract today that the first payment, and you say okay, 50% payment advance and then 50% in 15 days. So what will you say? You will write 50% payment advance by say 21st August, and then second payment of 50% remaining payment by say 5th September or something. So make the dates very clear, because if you count by number of days, then um, it's just not helpful for anyone. It gets confusing. It can raise a lot of questions. So just make it very clear. I'm going to keep saying make it very clear because that's the purpose of a contract. It's to clarify everything. So, include as many things as you can, but also don't overwhelm the person. So yeah, so in terms of payment terms, it is, how much advance payment, what dates the payment have to be made. If it's a monthly contract, then you can write that the payment must be made on the same date every month, like your Netflix subscription. If you're subscribed to Netflix, you're going to get a payment, you're going to be charged every single month on the exact same date. So on the 15th of August, if you start, then you will be charged on the 15th of September, same date. So that's a monthly cycle, so you can clarify that as well. And you can include your bank details. So that is what I prefer, include bank details. And another thing, who's going to pay the transaction charges, who's going to pay the transfer fees, make it all very clear. So if normally what I write is, kindly note, if if your bank charges any transfer fees, those are payable by you. So any extra transfer fees are payable by you. So again, that like really helps. It makes a lot of sense for international bank transfer, because within India you don't really have those fees, but on international bank transfer these can be very significant. So try to keep that route clear as well. And finally, you can add some like casual line in there, like I'll just read out what I have written. So this is something that I'd seen on their website, and that's why I've written this. If you agree that the above fairly sets out your understanding of our mutual responsibilities, please sign a copy of this letter in the space indicated below and email it back to me. However, if you'd like changes, let's chat. So you are giving that intimation that if you would like to get any changes made in the contract, if there are anything you're confused about, let's talk about it. And finally, in the end, you can just put your name, the company name, and while signing, you can do a digital signature if that's fine with you, and you just add the date and the signature. So that's it. That's your complete contract right there. So I'm just gonna quickly run through everything I've said in terms of contracts. So the first is an intro where you have, okay, first thing is the heading. You can say monthly agreement, letter of agreement, monthly contract, whatever you want. Um, you can have in the introduction, you have your name, company's name, their address, your address, just who's involved, make that clear. The scope of work, the fees, the process of working, the final deliverables, the terms, the payment terms, and finally your signature. Now, normally when I sign a contract, it is usually until we are doing the work. Okay, so that's up to you. You can have a time period set that the contract is valid for this first month only, or the contract is valid for 3 months, 6 months, contract is valid until we stop working. Whatever you want in that validity, you can kind of, do it your way. So that's how you create a contract. Sending a contract, what I do is I just okay, so what I do is, for a contract, I make it on a Google Doc. Nothing fancy, it's just text written, and for every heading it's just a different size. The size of the heading is bigger and it's bold. And I send this document as a comment only document to my client. They can review if they have any changes, or if they are like, okay, this is different, they can add comments. So in this sense, I can, edit the contract and clarify queries before I send it, before I do all the hard work of, converting it, writing an email, sending it, and making sure it comes back signed. So again, this is, you could say, like, it's an outline format again, basically getting approval before sending the final thing. So that's what I do. I send a Google Doc link with the comments only feature. They can check, they can add comments. Um, doesn't mean you have to accept all the comments. It means that, whatever you find, whatever you find feasible, you can work with that, or you can answer their queries. Then once it's done, I convert it into a PDF, and I send that to my client over email. So yeah, that's the easiest way to do it. They can do a digital signature, they can print it out, sign, and then send a scan copy back to you, whatever you prefer. Another thing is, some of my clients recently started using this tool called EverSign. So EverSign. So it's basically a website where you can upload your contract and you can add email ID of your client, and the other person gets the contract and they can just sign it. So this time, like, I had sent the PDF to one of my clients, and the client sent it back to me as a EverSign document. So that's also a good way, and then the contract stays on that website, on that platform. And if you can figure it out, then that's good. It's a bit confusing to use, but if you can figure that out, maybe that's a good way to send contracts as well. So yeah, that's how you create a contract, you send a contract, and that's how you keep the agreement between you and your client. So that's a little bit about contracts. Now, if you have any questions about contracts, we can answer those. So you can comment your questions. But overall, just, try to keep it as crisp as possible and as clear as possible. And of course, the most important thing is, uh, you know, try to make the most of that contract that you are creating. Like, as much as possible, you should clarify it. Think of it as, your safeguard. That's the only thing I can say. So I think we have a few questions. Is there any tool we can use like Grammarly, Copyscape? If you're asking for contracts, um, you do not really need anything. I just use a Google Doc and I convert it into a PDF. So that's pretty fair enough. Do you include what will happen if they break the contract? That's a very good question. I do not, mainly because, I mean, if you want, you can probably use the contract in a dispute or something legally, but it's okay. Like, if they break the contract in terms of, um, say we had a contract of, say, like 6 months and instead they just stopped work after 4 months, that's fine. I'm fine with it. Then the same contract does not work after that. That's the only difference. But I don't really consider it. And most people that, if we have a contract, and if they say that, okay, I want to do a fifth newsletter, then I say that's going to be an extra charge because, look, as per the contract, this was our deal. So if you want to do one more newsletter, that's going to be an extra charge. So that's one way that you clarify it. And the other way is, maybe if you want to consider based on, the client and your relationship with them, if you want to consider an extra piece of task as a complimentary offer or just include it within your contract, that's fine as well. So I don't really consider that as a question. If they break the contract, would you include the penalties? What would those terms be? I think this is a very, very tricky place to be in. And especially as a freelancer, if you're a freelancer, if you're charging an advance payment, you are reducing your risk. Mainly, if you're charging an advance payment, your risk is already low because you're getting paid for the work you do. Okay, so you're saved in that sense. So if someone does break the contract, chances are it's going to mainly be that you're not getting paid for the work you didn't do, which means you thought that you would be getting paid for say 6 months, instead you got paid for 3 months. Okay, but you didn't even work for the 3 months. So in that sense, even if they break the contract, you're not too much at a loss because you are ending up still getting paid for the work you do. And the the penalty you could include would be, say, financial. You could tell them that, say, if you have a 6 month contract, if you break it in 3 months, then you must pay XYZ amount to break the contract. But I don't think anybody is going to abide by that, because if they're breaking the contract, they do not want to pay, and they do not want to work with you. And it just helps you be at good terms with them if you don't unnecessarily charge them when you're not working with them. Again, completely depends on the client, on the situation, on the working relationship you have. But this is something I prefer to completely avoid because it's very subjective, and it's probably not going to help me out. It's not going to help me out by including anything like this. So, yeah. Okay. When you don't want to do a contract work with someone, how do you politely decline? So, you mean that you don't want to create a contract? See, it's completely up to you. If you do not want to create a contract, I mean, I don't think there's any harm in it, because a contract is basically you sharing your scope of work, which you would normally do over a call, over an email, but just in a formal document. That's the main difference, right? And you should be fine with it. But, like, it doesn't really make a lot of difference. I have never been in that situation, so I don't know how I would react. I do get a bit skeptical when I get the NDA from the client. When I send a contract, it's different, but when I get it from them, it usually has a lot of legal jargon. It's probably made by like a lawyer or something, and it's very long. It has weird terms and things I don't understand, and then I really have to sit down and read every single word to make sure that it's exactly what we had spoken about on the call or in the email. So in that case, I become extra cautious and I read it at least 2 or 3 times before I sign it and send it. So you can do that. Or if you're not comfortable with it, you can say that I'm not comfortable with signing an NDA or a contract. And you can just say that and see if they're okay with one working without it, then it may work out for you. If not, then I think they'll just be like, okay, and just walk away. So what about legality? So, legality, it's a very big thing, right? So, if you're a freelancer and if somebody does not really abide by your contract, chances are you're not going to, make it a legal issue and take them to court, because it's just not worth the effort and the money and the time and the emotional investment and whatnot. So, depends again on the situation, on the client, on the amount. Largely depends also on the amount. Depends on a lot of things, but I have not faced any situation where it has become a legal issue as such. So yes, again, completely up to you. At what age did you start your social media journey? I'm 18. I also want to start it. Today is not about this. Today is about contracts. But if you're 18, just start it. Why do you care when I started, when anyone else started? You want to start it, you do it. That's it. There's nothing else to think about. Okay. Should my contract be branded? As a new freelancer, I've not worked out on a brand name or logo yet. Supriya. Supriya, you don't really need a branded contract or anything. I just include my name in the footnote. So, like basically every document, it has a footnote, like common footnote that's same on everything. So I just write contract between company name and Shreya Bhatta. That's my branding, I could say. So you don't really need to work on a logo or whatever. If you have a logo, you can use it. I have a logo, I still don't use it in my contract. If you have a logo, you can use it. If not, then it's completely fine. As long as your name is mentioned and the company's name is mentioned, I think you're good to go. So yeah, that's all. Okay, so everyone seems to be okay. So if you have any other questions, you can let me know. And what did you think about this live? Just maybe if you want to comment with an emoji, just comment your emoji about how you thought about this live. Okay, Karishma said 100. Okay. So, yeah, so that's all for today. That's all about contracts. There is a post on my page that I had made a few weeks ago, which was like a small snapshot of 10 things that should be in a contract. I will share that on my story after this. So if you would like a snapshot, then that's a good way to go. If anything else, you can forward this video on my channel and watch it. So most people liked it, so that's good. Veer Singh keeps saying that app development and content writing is the best. That's good. So that's what I'm here to talk about. Maybe you can learn from this. Amir, Barbie Rocker, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm glad everyone liked the live. And when will I be live next? Amir, I'll be live next on Saturday. I'm actually reconsidering because I know it's Ganesh Chaturthi on Saturday and I don't know if any of you would be around. But maybe I'll still do it so you can watch it later. Or I can have a Q&A or something. Maybe that would work as well. I'll let you know the topic. But I will be live every Tuesday and Thursday at this time. And every Saturday at around 6 p.m. Indian time or 1:30 British time. Yes, I will save this live. Ambuj, I will save this live, yes. Brain Orbit said it was bomb, so that's good. Okay, I think yeah, that's all for today. So if there's any questions, of course, you can DM me after this live. And this live will be available saved on my IGTV, so you can check it out there. And that's all for today. And thank you so much for joining. Before I leave, a little bit of promo. If you haven't really checked out my ebook yet, please go and check out my ebook. The link is in the bio. And yeah, that's all. Please go check out my ebook. And that's all. Thank you so much for joining today, and I will see you again soon, this Saturday, hopefully. And I hope you like this live. And just good luck working on your contract. So, thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you soon. Bye.